Hello and welcome. The big news from the last 24 hours were two events. A Ukrainian naval drone strike on the harbor of Novorossiysk, and a speech by the Ukrainian President Zelensky talking about disgusting situations in military recruitment. We're going to talk about this in this situational picture. There was a naval drone strike on the Russian harbor of Novorossiysk. The harbor is important, and it was meant to be the new naval base in case the Russians give back Sevastopol to the Ukrainians before the lease was extended, because Sevastopol was just leased to Russia to allow them to keep their naval base there. So this is one of the big Russian naval bases in the Black Sea, far inferior to Sevastopol, but at the same time very important for the exportation of crude oil. There has been a drone strike on the harbor, and the Russians said they intercepted all the drones, and as you can clearly see here, it worked fairly well. The Olengorsky Gornyak is showing some list proving that it's maybe tired, and it definitely intercepted a Ukrainian drone with its hull. We see it here, the event, how it happened, in a video from the drone itself, where you see it closing in on the landing ship tank. This is an important ship for the Russians. Not only is important for amphibious invasions, amphibious operations, for instance, should the Russians at some later point intend to do a naval invasion close to Odessa. After all, this seems incredibly impossible right now thanks to the Ukrainian dominance with anti-ship missiles in that area of the Black Sea. But even if it's not used for amphibious operations itself, in case of threat to the Kerch Bridge, in case of problems with the lines of communication over the land bridge, ships like this will be able to transport supplies, and as a landing ship tank, it is ideally made to transport heavy military equipment as well, if for whatever reason those lanes aren't as good. So taking out those ships that can help the Russians supply their armed forces in the whole southern area of the front line is obviously a big win for the Ukrainians. The bad news for the Ukrainians is, though, while the ship clearly was hit and while it showed list, it made it back to port. So it should be able to, the Russians should be able to repair it, but it'll likely still be out of commission for weeks, if not months to come. The other big news is from the speech of the Ukrainian president from the 3rd of August, where he said today there were reports from the head of the security service of Ukraine, Malyuk, and Minister of Internal Affairs, Klimenko. In particular, one of the issues is the inspection of the military commissars. We talked in detail. The inspection reveals many abuses, frankly disgusting ones. The recruitment of the Ukrainian armed forces is under increased scrutiny. There has been recently a corruption scandal in the south. Likely recruits are able to buy their way out of recruitments, buy their way out of fighting. Ukraine has also issued a ban for adult males from 18, I think, to 60 to even leave the country except with a special permission. And supposedly there are ways to buy your way to get this commission. This is devastating for the Ukrainian side. If you feel as a soldier that you are just one of those who are too stupid to buy their way out, and that the elites are not fighting on the front line, that they are managing to avoid it, that some parts can avoid fighting, then this is surely bad for morale. So it's important for the Ukrainian side to address this. Other than that, at least the suspicion, the text itself doesn't really say it. It just mentions that there are issues that apparently the recruiters are not really aware what it is about. They don't see the value in defending Ukraine, and that he seems to intend to replace the recruiters with people who have been in combat and who see the value. There are mentionings about lost people. There are those who unfortunately lost their limbs but did not lose their dignity and did not lose Ukraine. So he probably wants to replace recruiters with invalids. that are still capable of aiding the war effort. So probably meaning that some of the recruiters might see frontline service in their future as well. This might be a reference to the practice of catching men in the basically outside and dragging them into cars. Initially, some videos of this appeared and some of them seem to have been faked, but by now there's no longer a doubt that this is, at least to a certain part, actual practice in Ukraine. There are many independent verifications by now that in Ukraine you are actually under threat as a male, as a Ukrainian male. If you're being caught out in the open by recruiters, you might end up to being recruited. Whereas, so people start hiding, they go different routes not to be identified and all of this. Whether he wants to address this as well is a different question, but generally the recruitment practice seems to be somewhat flawed, if not massively flawed, and to address this is actually a good thing. Now, this might be counterintuitive to talk about this, but a country that is divided in itself like this, where recruiters are abusing their power for personal gain, where corruption is ripe, and where those who are being called up don't feel that the system is fair, is a big problem for the morale of the fighting troops. And to solve that issue, it needs to be identified as a problem first. The first step to solve any problem is identifying it first, and this is obviously being done here. And by going to the public with it, Zelensky probably does the best out of the situation by showing that he is caring about the situation, that he's aware of it, and that he wants to improve it. So we'll have to see how this will turn out, if this will help Ukraine, but it's probably a very necessary step for the Ukrainian armed forces, even though it is far from being a nice message that was sent here by the president himself. I'm not going to talk about the frontline developments today in the situational pictures, because while fighting is continuing, the movement along the front line is mostly limited. And instead of spending the next 10 minutes telling you there was fighting here without any movement, and then there was fighting here without any movement, we'll skip this part today and keep it short to allow me time to research for something else. That was it. Thus, if you liked this video, please hit a thumbs up, leave a comment. What do you think about the Ukrainian recruitment practices? We've seen, by the way, catching people on the street. We've seen that both in Russia as well as in its puppet regimes in the DNR and LNR, where it's happening from the beginning of the war. This practice was used there. What do you think about this, and about the ban to even leave the country, to basically be locked in there until the government calls you for military service? Leave your comment in the comment section about this. And if you're new here, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. This channel is only possible because of the support of viewers like you. If you like to support the channel, you can do so by the means in the description. Thank you very much to everyone already supporting this channel, and that's it from me for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back.